Hello and welcome to the Buckets and Tea NBA show. I'm your host, Cathryn Naiker. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode. Listen, it's been a minute. It's been a minute. I apologize. I have missed last week and I think the week before, which is really bad. I don't remember the last time I missed 2 weeks in a row on this podcast. I apologize. Life has been lifing. Life has been lifing. I don't know what else to say, but listen, I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're all enjoying the NBA playoffs. I know it's kind of different when the Raptors aren't in it. It's like, who am I rooting for? Blah, blah, blah. How much are we following our former Raptor friends? Are we watching Pascal? Are we watching OG? Let me know where you're at with all of this. I can't wait to hear from you. Let's get into this. There's so much to break down. I'm gonna do my best to cover it all. And I've got like a whole list here of topics I want to go over. But let's start with the Tatum injury. I want to talk about this Boston New York series. That game 4 was absolutely phenomenal and like truly heartbreaking when he went down. Like, as you all know, I don't exactly root for Boston. Okay, I'm not exactly out here rooting for Boston. Okay? But when he went down, I felt gutted cuz I was like, I don't want this to happen. And it looked bad, and we find out it's an Achilles the next day. One thing I was thinking about is I don't know if there's ever been a playoffs where we have lost more than one major player to an Achilles injury, right? Like we lose Damian Lillard in the first round, and now we lose Tatum in the second round. And it's like, has this ever happened before? It really got me thinking, because I feel like we're at this place where, like, modern medicine, sports medicine, it's never been better. But yet we still see these like catastrophic injuries. And I feel like this is kind of the next wave. I would say this isn't exactly where I thought I would start off 2 minutes into the podcast, but it really did get me thinking, like, is this going to be studied? Is this going to be like something we look at going forward? I know a lot of other people have talked about, shortening the season. I do think there's a lot of validity to that. But yeah, it just really sucks to see multiple big name players, or just multiple players, period, going down with like really big injuries and then having it affect the trajectory of the playoffs. I mean, I think like with Milwaukee in the first round, like Indiana really had a hold on them. If Damian Lillard were healthy, who knows? But I feel like Indiana really handled themselves in that series. But now we've got Tatum going down and New York being kind of the likely team to come out of this. Now they had a terrible showing in game 5, which is like the most Knicks thing ever. We'll see what happens in game 6. To me, it's like, wouldn't it be the craziest, most New York Knicks thing in the whole world if they botched this series and Boston won? Think about, like, it would just be crazy if that happened. And someone needs to tell the league they don't have to go this hard. The drama this week between the draft lottery and these injuries and all this stuff, it's like someone needs to tell the NBA, listen, you do not have to go this hard. Like, this might, buckets and tea. It's like someone's knocked over the tea. Someone's knocked it over. They knocked over the pot. It spilled on the ground. There is too much drama right now. I digress. I thought a lot of people were really like over exaggerating and jumping the gun, talking about how like Boston should possibly tank next season for 1 year until Tatum comes back. That's an absolutely ridiculous notion. Boston's too good, even without Tatum, to do such a thing, especially in the Eastern Conference. Think about it. Even if, like, worst case scenario, Tatum doesn't come back at all next season, he has an 8 to 12 month timeline. So earliest he could come back would be like post All-Star break. But even like worst case, he's out for the whole season. Boston is still a top 6 team in the Eastern Conference, right? Like, let's be real. Like, we don't know what Milwaukee's going to look like. Nobody has faith in Philly. Cleveland will still be good. New York will still be good. Indiana will still be good. But, like, I mean, even if they were in the play-in, I don't know, man. Like, I just don't see Boston not being in the top 6 next year, regardless of Tatum's return. So Boston's going to be way too good to even consider tanking next year. It's completely unnecessary. I think what Boston needs to figure out is, obviously, there's been a lot of talk about Porzingis and his health and like his, inefficiency. Is this someone they could trade? Who they could trade him for, I'm not sure. I don't know what kind of market there would be for Porzingis at this point, as well as Al Horford, because Al Horford's 38. I don't even know if he'll be playing in the 2026-2027 season. So not next year, the one after. That's the part of it they have to figure out, because they've relied heavily on Al Horford, and he's shown up for the most part, for sure. Like, I feel like Al Horford has probably exceeded expectations at this point in his career. But that's the piece of it that they need to figure out for next year. They don't need to tank. They don't need to do any of that. I don't even necessarily think they should trade Drew Holiday. Like, people were talking about that, and it's like, but you got him because he's an elite defender, and then you won a championship with him. So that feels short-sighted to me. If Jaylen Brown is your best player on an Eastern Conference team, you're not going to be that bad. And then there's just like what's Atlanta going to do? We're going to get into like a bit of offseason stuff a little later, although I am going to hold on to most of it. People are really jumping on these Giannis rumors, but I feel like we're going to have a whole summer of this, so I don't want to get ahead of myself here. But I think we're going to have a very volatile offseason and a very busy summer. So with that being said, I feel like that's the major part of this team that they'll need to look at going forward, regardless of what happens in the series. But they don't need to tank. They don't need to blow anything up. This is like a significant, but not that big piece of the puzzle, so to speak. And if you get Tatum back before the season's over, like if he comes back like early March, like he's got 6 weeks to ramp up before the playoffs start. And I mean, imagine like having to face that team in the first round. That'd be crazy. They should not overreact. But I hope he gets better soon. Another thing about this injury is, and this might be a little bit like only I feel this way, but let me know if you feel the same way too. When they showed him in the wheelchair with his hands over his face in the tunnel, it felt like this is something we're not supposed to see. You know what I mean? Like, I feel that way. Like, there was a WNBA example of this with Chelsea Gray. She tore her ACL, and they had a shot of her like in a lot of pain in the tunnel going into the locker room, and I was like, I don't think we should be witnessing this right now. Like, I really feel like it should be a league rule that when a player goes into the tunnel because they're injured, once they're in the tunnel, cameras off. Like, we don't show them. Once they're off the court, I feel like they deserve some privacy. That's just my opinion. There was a text that was leaked. Was it Reggie Miller that like said like he was he was talking to his dad, like, why me? And then his dad was like, hey, like Kobe's your idol and stuff like that. I was like, do we need to know this? Do we need to know this? Also, too, like, yes, Kobe was his idol, and that's cute and all, but Kobe was never the same after he tore his Achilles. Frankly, really not the best example. With all due respect, not the best example. I mean, I would be looking to, like, Kevin Durant, frankly, because he's been able to shine since, and he's older, both when he injured his Achilles and now. So I feel like, there are better examples out there, but hey, man, whatever works, right? Whatever works. I don't necessarily root for Boston, but I'd hate to see players go down. I hope he gets better. I hope we see him back next year. As far as the Knicks go, like, come on, guys, close this thing out already. I mean, what are we doing? Uh, but look, I hope they win this series because I'm really looking forward to an Eastern Conference final of Indiana and New York again. I mean, I'm old. We've talked about this. We've talked about how old I am. I did watch these games when I was a kid. It was all very exciting for me. I want to see it again. And the thing about this too is I feel like Haliburton has like ruining the New York Knicks written all over him. Right? Like he has that, like, I don't know, he has a presence. And I don't want to like overly compare it to Reggie Miller, but he has that, like, I'm going to be the spoiler kind of guy about him, kind of like how Trae Young was. Like I just feel like he is the perfect guy to have a big moment in Madison Square Garden and just rip their hearts out. And we love to see it. Sorry, New York fans, okay? But we love to see it. And I'm predicting that Indiana is going to go to the finals. I think they'll beat New York. I think they'll beat Boston, right? Like if New York just totally like messes up and Boston wins the series, I think Indiana is beating either of these teams. I've been so impressed with them all playoffs. Not just the fact that they got here again, but I feel like they're winning with a lot more ease and cohesiveness than I anticipated. And that's something I look out for. I don't look for just, are they winning games? I kind of look for how they're winning games. And they're dominating. And I really feel like Indiana is going to be in the finals, which is something I don't think anyone predicted, truly. So I'm excited for this Indiana team. I really like them. I'm rooting for them. Really loving Pascal. Really happy for Pascal. I think this is like his 4th Eastern Conference Finals now. Like Pascal's building up a really nice resume for himself in terms of being a guy that like consistently goes deep in the playoffs regardless of the team that he's on. And I'm so happy for him. And yeah, really, really rooting for him. I know we could be rooting for OG, and I am. I'm rooting for OG. But I feel like I'm rooting for Pascal a little more. Let me know what you think. But yeah, I absolutely think Indiana is going to the finals. Now, with that being said, do I think Indiana is going to win the whole thing? No. No, I don't. But we'll get into that. I want to talk a bit about Cleveland first. Cleveland. Oh, well, the last thing I wanted to say about Haliburton is like this whole like athletic poll about him being overrated. Easily the best thing that ever happened to him. That is easily the best thing that ever happened to Haliburton. Like he took that and ran with it, shouting to the crowd, overrate that. I mean, you gotta love it. He's poised to be that spoiler. He really is. Cleveland, wow, disappointing series. Didn't see this coming. I think we all thought Cleveland was going to move on, and that a Cleveland versus Boston Eastern Conference final was inevitable. And now we might not be seeing either of those teams again. NBA, you do not have to go this hard. This is absolutely wild. One thing with the Cavs that I was thinking about is, we were having this conversation about like, but lack of experience with OKC. And I feel like we could have been having this conversation with the Cavs because as a team, as a cohesive, like they were in the playoffs last year. I don't recall if they were in the playoffs the year before, but they've got a new coach and this is a newer team. I mean, it's certainly new for them to have expectations on them. So I feel like some people are overreacting to Cleveland losing in this series. I mean, it sucks by how much they lost by. I mean, I felt like Donovan Mitchell was just completely gassed. They did have some bad injury luck in this series, but yeah, I don't think Cleveland needs to blow it up or over exaggerate or anything like that. I really feel like this is just part of the growing pains. And like John Hollinger with The Athletic wrote this whole thing like, oh, like the Cavs are going to have a lot of, questions they need to answer this offseason. And I was like, I don't know about a lot, man. Like, this is still a really, really good team. You know, being a great regular season team is obviously not the same as being a great playoff team. You have to learn how to win in the playoffs. I'm a big believer in that. It does take time. Teams knock on that door for years. I think this is, relatively normal. And the only thing I feel like the Cavs really need to do, like player wise, movement wise, is Darius Garland not being healthy or not being consistently healthy, I think is a problem for the Cavs. I don't know if they can move off of Darius Garland or if it makes sense to. But they do have a lot of bigs. And that to me is a major asset for this team because there's a lot of teams who are like desperate for a big. I'm looking at LA, I'm looking at Golden State. And I feel like, I think you can trade Jared Allen and just continue to build around Evan Mobley. And if you find a backup point guard that is capable of being a starting point guard, like I was trying to think of an example. One person I thought of was Dennis Schroeder. I don't think he's the answer to all your problems, but somebody like that, maybe a little better, is to me the key here. Like that's what they need to find. But I don't think they need to like blow it up and trade a bunch of people. Like I don't know. I hope the Cavs don't panic. I hope the Cavs fans don't panic. Trust the process kind of thing. I mean, I hate that saying in relation to the 76ers, but in this context, it's like trust the process, okay? Like this was year one. This is a learning experience. Come back next year hungry. Come back with a chip on your shoulder. Come back with something to prove to people, right? Like, one another thing I love about Indiana is Haliburton saying like, I wanted to show people that when we made it to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, it wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a fluke. It wasn't just good luck. We are that good. I love that sentiment. And I feel like the Cavs need to have that chip on their shoulder going into next season. Like we're not just a good regular season team. We're a good team. We're a good playoff team. And I think they can prove that. I think they have what it takes to prove that. So that's what I want to see from them going into next year. I really hope they don't panic. OKC versus Denver. This game 6 is happening as I'm recording, so I won't be able to react to the full end of this game. But what I will say about this series is that it's absolutely phenomenal. Back-to-back series for Denver just being some of the best basketball we've seen in a long time. I feel that this series is the championship series. I think who wins this series will win the championship. And I posted this on Blue Sky like a few weeks ago, but I'm a big believer that this is it. One of these two teams is winning the championship. I don't think anyone left has a chance in hell of beating either of these teams in a 7-game series, with all due respect. I really don't. I think this is some of the best basketball we're going to see this entire playoffs. And that's just sometimes how the bracket works out, where like Denver back to back, like, this series could easily go 7 games. It's hard to do 7-game series, 2 in a row. And if they do come out of this, I'm going to be concerned about their fatigue. That much I will say. but they're too good. They're too good. Both OKC and Denver are too good. I feel like, there was a bit of talk about, the MVP race, Shea versus Jokic and stuff like that. I think Shea is a phenomenal player. I really do want to see him win an MVP. Absolutely love Shea. Love this OKC team also. But I feel like in this series, what we're seeing is that Jokic is the best player on the planet right now, and Shea is the best player on the best team. That's what I think this series has shown us. And I think with Denver, it's like when Jamal Murray isn't like on and Michael Porter Jr. isn't like on, then things start to fall apart a bit. And I'm not the first one to say that, obviously. But like to me, like Michael Porter Jr. like really needs to be this team's like Derek White. Like he needs to be consistent and kind of have like an overall game. Like he needs to be the kind of player that really fills that stat sheet the way Derek White does. And sometimes he does and sometimes he doesn't. And it's just killing the man because Jokic is just dragging this team to the finish line, I feel, sometimes. Shout out to Aaron Gordon, though. Wow, what a playoffs it's been for Aaron Gordon. Who knew we were going to say that? Aaron Gordon is playing the best basketball of his life right now. In the clutch shots, of course, included in that. Right now, it's 2012 Denver, middle of the first quarter. So they're coming out strong, which is good. More or less what I expected. But this is it. This is the series. I would be extremely shocked. And we've been shocked by a lot of things this season. I would be extremely shocked if either of these teams didn't end up winning the championship. And I would be happy for either one of them. Okay. Where are we at now? Okay, we got to talk about Minnesota and Golden State. What a disappointment. I do love the Warriors. I've talked about them being kind of like my second team next to the Raptors. What a disappointment. Obviously, Steph goes down. That sucks. But we didn't see playoff Jimmy in these playoffs, right? Like we just did not see playoff Jimmy the way we needed to. They blew that game 3, completely blew it. That was the moment. That game 3 was the moment for them to have a shot in this series. And once that game was lost, it was over. I thought Steve Kerr did something really interesting and frankly really ballsy. And that is in game 2. He just played everybody. It was like a real, like, let's just throw shit on the wall and see what sticks. And I was like, to do that in a playoff game, you're basically saying like, hey, we won game 1. We're going to deliberately lose game 2 for the sake of experimenting with different lineups. And then I'll have a better idea of what to do in game 3. Now, to a degree, this plan actually worked, right? Like game 2 was a complete blowout. And then game 3, they were close. Like game 3, the Warriors should have won this game. It was ridiculous how they let this thing go at the end. But everything they learned from game 2, put in place for game 3, actually did work. They just didn't execute down the stretch. And I feel like they're just acting like they're more talented than they are. Like they have this mindset that they were who they were a few years ago, and they're just not. They're just not anymore. And you can't do that. You can't just sacrifice a game in the playoffs to experiment and then see what's going to work and then just try to win the rest of them. Like you're not talented enough. You're not deep enough. You don't have the depth to do that. And I feel like on one hand, it's like it shows how Kerr is a good coach because he was able to turn that around so fast, even though, again, it did end up in a loss. But on the other hand, I'm kind of like, what have you been doing all season that you don't know a lineup that works when Curry's not on the court? I mean, he's not playing 48 minutes a game, right? And you've had Jimmy Butler since like the beginning of February. Like, what? How are you not figuring that out before the playoffs? Like, that's kind of like where my confusion and frustration with this team is like, how do you not know what's going to work? I mean, granted, I will give them some benefit of the doubt is that they didn't have a regular season game against the Timberwolves once they got Jimmy. So I will give them that. But, like, come on, guys. You can't just be throwing a game away in a playoffs. You're not that good. And that was disappointing. The other disappointing thing was the whole time I was like, man, I really wish Klay Thompson was on this team. Now, I know I love Klay Thompson. And yes, he isn't the player he once was, blah, 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 which I think is like kind of a bit overstated at this point because Klay Thompson is good enough still that he forces the defense and the offense, frankly, to space the floor. He forces you to space the floor. He forces you to guard him. He forces you to put a hand up. And he does that in a way that, respectfully, Buddy Hield just does not. When Buddy Hield has 20 points and a half, it's the greatest game of his life. And that is just not true for Klay Thompson. And I think it's a shame to this team's legacy that they didn't just pay him. Like, this is one of the, I know there's new rules. Okay. I know there's new rules. I know there's all this stuff. Okay. The new CBA, blah, blah, blah. I get it. I know. And it's going to make it really difficult for teams going forward to have quote unquote super teams, which is by design. However, this is one of the richest franchises in all of sports, not just basketball, all of sports. Like, for the legacy of this team, you're going to make money off of the legacy of this team. You're going to make money off of nostalgia for years and years to come. Just pay them, And I feel like they would have been better off even now without Steph because of that floor spacing, right? Because it's like Jimmy Butler's the only offensive threat on the floor. And then Kuminga came in and he did his thing. But I guess like the issue with Kuminga is that like I read that Steve Kerr was upset with Kuminga because he was looking for his own shot instead of passing to Steph. And they got so frustrated with him, they decided not to play him anymore. Just wild. Because it's like, he's 22 years old. It's like, can we teach this guy to play off the ball? Like, do you not have an assistant coach that's like dedicated to his development? Anyway, I don't know. Like, Kuminga too, it's like, and Buddy Hield, it's like, if they have a great night, great. If they don't, they don't. But Klay, even when he has a bad night, everyone knows he can get hot at any time. And you have to guard him throughout an entire game. And that at least gives you the chance to space the floor more, to give Jimmy Butler different looks and better looks at the basket. And I think it's a shame that they didn't do things that way. But we're here now. I looked up Steph Curry's contract. It goes to the summer of 2027. You got to figure that's it, right? Like, he'll play next year and then the year after that, and he's probably done, right? Like, I don't know he'll still be a great player. I'm not saying that. I just mean, like, I don't know if Steph is going to be like playing like into his 40s the way LeBron has been, especially if they're not playing meaningful basketball. Right. So it's like you have a 2-year timeline. You have 2 years left. This is another reason why they signed Jimmy Butler, because it's like they're kind of timing this so it all kind of ends at the same time. Draymond's contract is up, and I believe Jimmy Butler's contract is up at the same time. I might be slightly off on that, but they're trying to time this out. So it's like, okay, we've got 2 years left. This year, injury luck is crap. If Steph is healthy in this series, they might have won. They might have won the series. I'm not sure. Right? Like, they maybe have won the series if he's healthy, but I don't think they're beating OKC or Denver. Right? With a healthy Steph. I don't think that's happening. And I think one of the issues that this roster has, aside from multiple shot makers, shot creators, is size. Right? Like, they kind of hung their cap on like the small ball style for a while. But other teams have combated that. Like Denver's got size. OKC's got size. And 2 years ago when they lost to the Lakers in the semifinals, if I have that right, Anthony Davis destroyed them. Like, they had no answer for Anthony Davis. So it's like when you have a versatile big that you're up against, there's only so much Draymond can do. Honestly, like, I talked about Cleveland having size and needing more support in the backcourt. These two need to be on the phone with each other. They could do like a Jarrett Allen for Kuminga, Moses Moody trade. And that would help make them better. Maybe not Kuminga. But if they traded Jarrett Allen for like Moses Moody and like Gary Payton II or something like that. Jarrett Allen he struggled in this playoffs, no question. He struggled in the playoffs. But he is a starting center in the NBA. Okay? He's a solid starter at center. And that allows you to keep Draymond at the forward spot, and you don't have to force these small ball lineups, and you have like Draymond on like Rudy Gay or Rudy Gobert. Shout out to Rudy Gay. Oh my God. Such a Raptors fan here. But you know what I mean? Like, I feel like these two teams need to talk. Okay. And if they could get a deal like that done that doesn't, put them over the luxury tax and blah, 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 I think that would help. It doesn't solve all their problems, but it gets them closer. 2 years. I feel like they've blown it. I really, really feel like they've blown it, but because I love Steph so much, I'm really hoping they have it. Okay. I'm going to move on to the draft lottery. What insanity the draft lottery was. It's like the NBA is becoming a literal soap opera. Like, I have friends in my DMs who are NBA fans who are like genuinely so frustrated and so over the league because they're like, it's just too much drama now. So Dallas wins the number 1 pick. It's like something happens like that and you're just like, well, karma isn't real. Karma isn't real. God isn't real. Blah, blah, blah. Like, it's just, I know it's dramatic. What is Dallas going to do? Because obviously it's like, well, you're going to draft Cooper Flag. They gave you like the lifeline of the decade, literally, after you did the worst trade of all time. But now you have this 2 timelines thing that doesn't make any sense, right? Like, they were like, oh, we trade for Anthony Davis because we're ready to win now and defense wins championships and blah, 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 blah. And now you have this rookie who's like barely 18 and you're going to have him next to Anthony Davis, who's 33, and Klay Thompson, who's like 35 or 36. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So it's like, I'm not saying they should trade Cooper Flag, but it's like, buddy, do you trade Anthony Davis? Like, it does, like, the 2 timelines are too like extreme here. Like, I don't know what they're gonna do. I don't think this team on paper as it exists makes any sense at all. Like, any sense at all. Hopefully, Kyrie has like a post All-Star break return to the team. We'll see. But like, it makes things very interesting and very weird that they got the number 1 pick. And, people, I don't know what they should do. I really don't, because the whole Luka thing is so confusing. And I don't believe anything they've said to the public. I mean, them getting the number 1 pick kind of throws the like Las Vegas theories out the window. But I still don't believe that what they told us is like the real reason they traded him. I digress. Do you trade Cooper Flag? I mean, I guess it depends for who, right? Like, but at the same time, it's like, this is stupid. This team's stupid. What do you do? I don't know. Tim Bontemps was saying they should trade Anthony Davis. And he was actually saying this after the Kyrie injury. And I'm kind of like, yeah, like I think getting Cooper Flag changes things. It makes sense to go younger. I don't know who's in the market for Anthony Davis, but someone would be. Same with Clay, same with like, other teams that feel like they're one or two pieces away to being really competitive. Kyrie, even like, I just don't understand having these like guys in their mid 30s surround, and then having them revolve around Cooper Flag. Like I don't get it. Like when you have a young team, you do want a couple vets, like one or two like really solid veterans on the team who can kind of lead by example for everyone else, but this is like the opposite of that. So, anyway, just absolute insanity. Shout out to San Antonio getting the number 2 pick, my goodness. Praying that Wemby comes back and he's healthy and all this is behind him and we can see another glorious San Antonio era. And shout out to Greg Popovich. Sad we're not going to see him coach again, but it makes sense. They gave him this kind of honorary presidential role with the team, which is the right thing to do. Maybe they'll do like an honorary jersey retirement in the stadium. I think that would make sense as well. Yeah, just craziness. With that, let's move on to our Raptors Homer moment here. So we've got a couple things to talk about. One, lots of Giannis rumors. Listen, we're going to have a whole summer of Giannis rumors, okay? We're going to have a whole summer. So I feel like once the playoffs are over, there's going to be plenty of time to dive into the Giannis rumors, okay? Would he play in Toronto? Sure, he'd play in Toronto, especially if he was traded. I mean, we traded for Kawhi. Of course, we could trade for Giannis. Does it make sense? Who would we have to give up? Blah, blah, blah. It would probably have to be a multi-team trade, I'm assuming. But again, we're going to dive into that another day. Okay, so everyone just hang on. Hang on. Don't give up your hopes. Giannis hasn't even requested a trade at this point. I don't think Milwaukee will move him unless he forces their hand to do so. So I don't think they're casually shopping either. I mean, if anything, maybe they're going to casually shop Damian Lillard, who I know isn't going to play for a year, but if another team decides to tank and they're willing to take a salary dump, like that could change things for Milwaukee possibly. But I mean, I kind of have a feeling he isn't going to leave, to be honest. Like, of course he's competitive. Of course he wants to win, but I mean, I don't think he wants to just go anywhere. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see. Lots of time to get into that. But excited that the Raptors are at least in the conversation. Maybe? I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it yet. The other big rumor is Masai. It's been reported this week the Atlanta Hawks are interested in hiring Masai to be their president of basketball operations, blah, blah, blah. Everyone just this whole episode, I'm like, everyone just needs to stay calm. That's kind of how I feel. Everyone in the league is interested in Masai. New York was interested in Masai. Washington was interested in Masai. He did not leave. If anything, he used that interest to leverage his contract negotiations, which were far more tense than they ever should have been. I know Masai hasn't had his best, last couple of years here. Things have been kind of confusing in this retool / okay, now we're pivoting into a rebuild. Now we're pivoting into Brandon Ingram. What's going on? But overall, he is by far one of the better, more competent people in that role in this league. And I don't think he's going to leave. I don't think anyone has to even worry about him leaving. I don't think Atlanta is a better situation than Toronto. I mean, at least like the New York rumors made a bit more sense. It's like bigger market, blah, blah, blah. But Atlanta doesn't have anything to offer him that we don't have to offer him. As well, like Masai here has a lot of like trust and control from the ownership group. And I just feel like I just, it's not going to happen, everyone. It's not going to happen. And if it does happen, it's not going to be for Atlanta. All right. That is not a step up in life, respectfully. Yeah, man. Grady Dick and Emmanuel quickly went to see the Blue Jays. That was cool. I guess that's kind of like the Raptors stuff that I have. But the fact that people are circling the Raptors in rumors, I think the takeaway from that is to know that we have something, right? Like, we are not sitting here with nothing to do, with nothing to offer. We're not stuck. We don't have our hands tied. We do have good players. Like, I feel like people should be excited by the fact that people are interested in including the Raptors in trade rumors, or included in, you know, people still wanting Masai. It just means that we're not in as bad of a spot as maybe some people paint it out to be. We got the number 9th pick. For everyone who was pro tank, or we should have tanked harder, I think you should be relieved that we didn't. Because, like, Washington got the number 6 pick, and they were tanking so hard all year long, right? Like, Utah lost out. Like, these are the teams that were like, we want Cooper Flag. We don't care about this season at all. We're doing everything we can to get him, and they still didn't get him, right? I mean, like, Dallas was in the play-in, and they got Cooper Flag. Now, I know the odds were crazy that happened, but I feel like this is exactly why Masai, Bobby, and company didn't want to tank that hard, and they didn't. And it seems to have worked out that they didn't, because everything would just be worse. Like, if we sat through the worst basketball we've seen here in like 15 or 20 years, right, tanking so hard for Cooper Flag, and then we ended up with like the 6th, 7th, or 8th pick, like, we would be pretty pissed off, right? So I trust this team in that they're usually pretty good with drafting. They're really good at finding talent. There was somebody had that great post on social media as soon as we got, maybe it was the Raptors social media, that posted like, look at who we've drafted at number 9 before, and it was like Tracy McGrady and DeMar DeRozan and Yaka Pirtle, and it's like, yeah, like, that's actually really great. Not that Masai made those picks, but still, like, Masai picked Scotty Barnes over Jalen Suggs, and like, there's so many other examples of him finding great talent that I feel like, whoever he finds at number 9, like, I'm just going to be all the way behind them and hoping for the best. I mean, even like Grady Dick was like number 13, I think, in the draft when he was drafted. And, he kind of like, he had a bit of growing pains there, did, stuff in the G League, and then came back, and like, now he's like a really, really solid rotation player. And there are guys who get drafted at that spot that don't even last in the league. So I feel like I still trust in them. I'm looking forward to seeing who they draft. Of course, here at Raptors Republic, we've got people who are on that in terms of like, who are the prospects to look out for, looking at different highlights and stuff like that. I'm going to cover that on this show as well as we lead up to the draft, probably after the finals. So look out for that. And yeah, I don't know, like, in the past, the Raptors Republic has had a draft party. I don't know if we're going to do anything like that this year or not, but that would be really fun if we did. Hopefully we do something for the draft. But anyways, we're at number 9. I don't think anyone should feel that bad about it. I trust them still to pick a really good player at that spot. It looks like Cooper Flag wasn't in the cards for us regardless. So it's good that we didn't tank that hard. Our only number 1 pick in history, I believe, is Andrea Bargnani. So there you go. Right? All our great players were picked at different spots, the number 1. How are we? 45 minutes in. Love this for us. Okay, I'm going to do our Hottie Highlight of the week. I'm sure there's been a lot of Hottie Highlights in the last couple of weeks, okay? I'm thinking about Haliburton, Selly, stuff like that, blah, blah, blah. But who I'm going with is Anthony Edwards. And I've talked about this all year about his relationship with this kid who's been battling cancer. The kid's name is Luca. And he was like, I'm going to wear this wristband for the rest of my career. And he has. He's lived up to that. And Ant was happy to see Luca in the crowd at the T-Wolves game last night. He got an orange wristband from Luca, who's battling cancer and wears it to every game. I love that their relationship is still going strong. He had a sign that said, to do, number 1, beat cancer. Number 2, be the next AE, Anthony Edwards. Number 5. I'm obsessed with these two. I love them so much. So he's getting my Hottie Highlight because I've never seen. I don't think I've seen a player have a relationship like this with a fan. It's like players, they do this, they visit at the hospital and things like that, and it's like a one-time visit. And this is like a continued, like, real bond that he has built with this kid, and I love it. So I'm giving it to him. And he's moved on to the Western Conference Finals, so good for him. I suspect they will lose. I don't think that series will go far, but happy for this kid. Phew! Oh my God, I didn't even hit the mute button fast enough. I'm sorry, everyone. All right, we're about 47 minutes in. Thank you, everyone, for listening, for tuning in. Let me know what you think. Let me know how you feel about each of these series that I kind of gave my thoughts on for each one. Who do you think is going to win it all? Do you think it's going to be OKC? Do you think it's going to be Denver? Do you think it's going to be Indiana? Do you think it's going to be New York? Like, let me know. I want to know what you guys are thinking. Hope you're all well. If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Leave a comment, leave a positive review. It really helps a lot. I missed you all. I should be back next week. Thanks again, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.